Good morning. This is Maria Quattrone with Be the Solution. And today is December 7th, 2020. And December 7th, that is Pearl Harbor Day. Also, it was my grandmother's birthday. So it's always been an important day to me. And today I am very excited to interview Kristi Piehl. Kristi is a phenomenal leader in her organization, Media Minefield. And welcome, Kristi.
Thank you. It's so nice to be with you.
Excited to talk with you today. I always love asking my guests to tell a little bit about their story and their journey so people have an understanding of who you are.
Sure. So my journey started, I was a little girl. I always wanted to be a TV reporter. And that was my career for 12 years. It's what I always wanted to do. I loved the work. I grew up in just outside of Minneapolis, about an hour outside of Minneapolis, Minnesota. My career took me to Mankato, Minnesota, to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, to Dayton, Ohio, back to Minneapolis. And I finished my career as an investigative reporter at the ABC station in Minneapolis. And in the, now I have to say, last economic downturn, one day I went into work in December. It was, gosh, probably almost right around this time of year, right around this week, I mean, and I was laid off. So 20 of us were pink slipped. I didn't see it coming. I was in contract negotiations, ready for my second contract, and I lost my job. And it was the best thing that happened to me. And I knew it at that time. It doesn't mean it wasn't easy. It was very difficult, the most difficult time of my life to date. But it gave me the opportunity as a mid-30s woman who was married, who had 2 children, to reevaluate the career. Is this really the best for my life? And not just is it what's best for my career, but is it what's best? Is this how I want to live? Because I never saw myself doing anything differently. So the layoff gave me that gift of a reset on my career. And I took some time with my kids and tried to figure out, okay, what am I on this planet to do? And I knew that I wanted to help people. And I knew that I had this interesting news background. And I also felt deeply that the public relations industry was flawed when it came to earned media. And earned media is the kind of media you get that you don't pay for. And that was what I knew. I had worked with many, many PR agencies and never found a good one on the reporter side. And so I didn't want to go into that work. And that's the kind of work most people go into after a news career. So I actually took a part-time job at my church, and I was working on the church bulletin. So literally a year from the time I was doing some work for Good Morning America, I was doing the church bulletin for not much more than minimum wage. And it was awesome because I got a full detox of the business. I got all the church staff, poured into me, and I took all sorts of assessments to figure out what I'm actually gifted at, what my skills and skill set, how I'm wired. Realized that I knew I was a leader. I was wired that way from the time I was little, but also that I had this entrepreneur spirit. And in looking back in my life, I was starting businesses in middle school and high school, but I kind of put that on the side to do news. And so that all came back. And so a year and a half after my layoff, I was taking a class at my church about how to help people with your gifts and talents. And week 3, the business happened. I had, the question we were asked was, what do you know so well you could teach other people? So my answer was news. I knew news. I knew I could teach it to other people. And I was like, there it is. That's it. I'll start a company. I'm an English major. I never thought about starting a company. And it was so clear to me that this is what I should do. I knew the name of it right away. I called my husband. He was actually working in New York City at the time. And I said, I'm going to start a company. And he said, great. And here we are 10 years later. And a lot happened in the middle, but that's how I got from, that's the journey of my career.
Okay, so there was a lot to unpack there, Kristi. So I'm going to go back to a couple of things. You said you had started multiple businesses when you were young in middle school. What was that about?
So I always have seen a need and a solution. And I've also, my grandmother, she was a quilter. And so the first business I had was in 6th grade. And she made me this cool pencil box. Like, she quilted it, and then there was a tie string at the top, and I put all my pencils in it and markers and everything, and I brought it to school, and everybody wanted one. So I started selling them. So I paid her for her I don't remember how much they were, but I paid her for her material. And then she said she wouldn't charge me for the labor, and I kept the rest. So I did that until that style went out. And then in seventh grade, I remember I became an Avon lady. All my friends started wearing makeup, and some of their parents wouldn't
Wait,
let them.
at
Yes,
7th
they went
grade?
at seventh grade. Yep. Yes, how wonderful that this regional woman took me on as a, seventh, eighth grader. And I did that for 3 or 4 years because, my friends needed makeup. They couldn't drive. I could get it to them. And I actually made kind of decent money for a kid. I really enjoyed it. And then, my high school career, I golfed and danced and did all these other things. So I couldn't, I had a traditional job, but I always had this, even if I walk into a restaurant, well, sadly, I'm not walking into restaurants right now. We're in shutdown, but if I walk in anywhere, I see like, oh, if they did this, it'd be better. And it's not because I've thought, do I have a critical spirit? Am I just like a really critical person? No, how can we make everything better?
Right.
Like if we did this, it could be better, so that's how I see the world.
Wow. That's very inspiring. I love the whole story about, seeing an opportunity and providing the solution, right? So that's my whole mantra. Our number one core value at our company is to be the solution. So I love how you got started in your company. You had mentioned something, and you said the reason why you wanted to start this was that you believe that PR was flawed. And what do you mean by that?
So PR is one of these terms that is such a giant umbrella term, and it means so many different things to different people. But whenever I worked with a PR agency as a news reporter in all the stations I worked in, the PR people would come in on tours because they wanted to come in and they could meet the news reporters. And every station I worked at, all the people would like roll their eyes, like, here they come, the PR people are coming, and they want to be fake friends, so they can get their people on the news. And my thing was always, well, how on earth could you be effective as a PR person if you have never worked in news? If the only time you've been in a newsroom is on a tour. High school students take tours of newsrooms. Of course they couldn't speak our language as reporters. Of course they didn't understand what I needed. Of course they couldn't coach their people that they were, having doing their clients doing interviews. Of course they couldn't coach them well because they didn't know. And so I love the industry for a lot of, there's so many different aspects of it, but when it comes to earned media coaching, understanding storytelling, social media content, boy, that's work that, in my opinion, journalists should be doing.
Right. And they weren't doing it. That's not what you experienced.
No, and there are some journalists that go into it. And, we have, our team is just about 35 people, and we hire on the media side former journalists who have worked in print and TV and radio and management and all the different elements of somehow news. And it's really because they understand how to make the connection, how to take someone, for you real estate. How do you take real estate, which I don't know how many people in your market are real estate agents, probably hundreds. How do you take you and connect you talking to what news is interested in? That's a jump that most traditionally trained PR people can't get to because they don't think like a reporter. They don't think about the story first. They don't think about the message first. So I'm not ripping on traditional PR. I think though that journalists have such value, and they're really undervalued by traditional PR, and they're missing out. And when we have clients that come to us from all over the country, and some have worked with really big agencies and big companies, New York and LA and Chicago, and they come to us, and we see what they've been given by their former agency, and it's a lot of busy work. And our clients, they don't really care how you got the news interview. They don't care how many. It's like you in real estate. Like nobody cares. All that they want is their business to do better. All that they want is the news interview so they can leverage it. How you got there, like put that behind the curtain. Nobody needs to know that. We say keep the magic at Media Minefield. How we get there, that's for us to worry about. The client needs to know that we're representing them well. So again, I just feel like my bigger mission is to really implode the public relations industry because we can do it better and we can make it better.
I love that. So you said right now you have 35 employees and you added a bunch of people, new employees this year. Tell me more about that.
Boy, COVID took everyone for such a loop, such a spin. I mean, it turned all of our business upside down. And so the minute that we were going to shut down and really saw what was happening, in mid-March with the world, I immediately went into, okay, all of our clients are crisis clients. So we work with clients that come to us in the middle of a crisis, and we know how to do that. So I went out to the whole team via video and said, we're going to treat everyone as if they're a crisis client. Connect with every single one of your clients. We have about 130 clients. Connect with your clients, see what they need, see how we can help them. We're in the helping business, and we're going to help them because they've never dealt with this. They have communication issues. They have internal communication issues. They have external communication issues. They have social media issues. So what can we do for them? And how can we make it better? And if we can be there for our clients and we can stay busy, we'll weather this. So that was our mindset. And we also, in doing that work, found out that there was a lot of opportunities, a lot of new services that people needed that we could provide. And we were able to grow during it. At first, I wasn't so sure. We lost a couple pretty significant clients. And my goal was just like, I just don't want to lay anyone off. I think as someone who was laid off once, I just would never want to do that. And business happens, and some things, your hand is forced. There's a lot of industries right now that their hand was forced. I really thought there could be a path for us to do more, and we expanded our work with some clients. We picked up a lot of new clients, and sadly, in my industry, some of the smaller agencies have shut down, and some agencies that were tied to events have shut down or really decreased in size. And people have come to us. And the thing about what we do is that our clients are public. They're out getting a lot of press if we do our job well. And then their friends are saying, hey, how are you doing this? And so we got a lot of referrals as well during that time. So it has been, boy, there's always a silver lining.
There always is. And isn't that great? When you do good work, you get referrals. It's funny how that happens. When you take care of people,
They take care of you back.
right? It's all about building community. One of the things that I've been very impressed with you, Kristi, is this 1 month sabbatical, and you have just come off of that. So tell us more about what that is.
Sure. Culture at the company is so important to me, and I really want to be a different kind of company and have a really different kind of culture. I just feel like there's a way to take care of people, and I feel a responsibility of the employees. And I feel like we can do really well. We can do great business. We can do what we say, and we can have this really unique culture. So one of the things that we have at the company, it's called Digging for a Decade. And it means that after someone has been with the company for 10 years, they get a 1 month paid sabbatical. So I started the company by myself. So this was my 10-year anniversary. So I took mid-October. Thank you. Mid-October to mid-November off. And I was really off, and it was weird.
So you were really off, no email, no phone calls.
No, I took one client called me with something kind of big going on. It was probably a 10-minute call, and then I passed it off to someone else. And the only other thing is that initially I thought I could be totally out of email, like shut it down. And I had someone else checking it for me and then passing on personal things. But I realized that just wasn't very effective, because mostly what was coming in were my kids' stuff. And, I was like, that's a waste of their time. So I kept in my email up once a day, maybe. But the hard thing, which it's funny, the things that, I have all this clarity now after taking a month off, but we have an internal chat room. So every client that gets a news interview, it hits our system. And so we have about 100 news interviews a week in some fashion. So there's a lot of activity happening, and especially around the election. And it was for some clients a lot of press, and for other clients nobody wanted to talk about anything but politics. So I was fascinated by what was happening in the press, and I watched a lot of news and consumed a lot of social media content just of my own interest. And I shut that down. I deleted it from my phone. So I didn't have that ticker of what was happening with the clients. And that was hard for me. It was really hard because you start a company, it's been in my head I have never taken a step away and not looked at that. So again, it was good for me, but it was really challenging.
Wow. So you tell me more about this ticker. When you have clients that are getting interviews, everybody in the company is alerted to that?
Yes, it's in Slack. So it's in, when some people may be familiar with how Slack works,
Yes.
but
We Slack all day.
yeah, right. It's our new water cooler, isn't it? So we have forms that every coach fills out, and so when any news interview hits the system, then someone else in the company has to, make a video, and there's a report that happens. So it's really a way for all the people that need to know about that interview to get notified. I view it as, I like knowing what our clients are doing, and I like knowing what they're talking about. I like making sure that people are, and I like that our clients are having influence. I love seeing national interviews. I love seeing local interviews. I love seeing, niche kind of publication interviews. It fuels me as, I'm just so proud. We have the best team ever, and I'm proud of the work that they're doing. So it's really fun to watch. So that was hard for me, but it was good for my brain to take a break.
So did you do anything fun? I don't know what we can do fun these days, but I'm sure we're finding little fun and little things, right?
Yes, I had, I needed a theme for me. That's just how I work. So I called it the month of moments, and my goal was every day to do one thing that I normally wouldn't do because of work. So the kind of the biggest thing is that my kids had a couple of days off school, so we went to New Mexico and hiked. So we found they were open at the time, and we could be safely outdoors and see a little sunshine, and that was great. That was just for like a long weekend, but
What's it like there?
it was beautiful. We were just outside of Santa Fe, and we never went into town because we just felt with the kids it probably wasn't safest. So we just stayed at the resort, and there was a 4-mile hiking path right outside of our cabin, and the meals were great. The food was very delicious, a Southwestern flair. It was beautiful. I want to go back when I can get into the town.
Nice. Yeah. Traveling is a big hobby of mine. And that's probably been one of the hardest things this year, outside of the normal, regular hard things that we've gone through, is no travel. Well, we did take one small trip for a quick one-day conference I went to in September, but I'm talking about big trips, like 2-week Europe trips. Do you
So
travel?
sad. Oh yes, it's sad, isn't it? That we went to, because our oldest son is a senior in high school. We had to do a couple of, like, one last kind of college trip, and so we went in August, and that was the first time I had been to an airline since March. And I took 12 flights from January to March, and then shut down. So it was so strange. I felt a little bit like when I was a kid and I hadn't been on an airplane, and you get there and you're like, oh, look at the big planes and they could take you places. It was the joy of travel that I hadn't had for many decades returned by getting on that airplane. Even just, we went from Minnesota to Michigan and back, but it was just like, oh, the majesty of being able to get on an airplane and go somewhere we take for granted. Like, so many things we've just taken for granted. I have, anyway.
100%. I thought, jet setting to Europe a couple times a year for 2 weeks was normal.
Not so much. I mean, think of when you get to Europe again. Aren't you just gonna, like, land in that airport and, like, cry or something, hug strangers? I don't know.
Yeah, so here's something, like, every time there's some show on about Italy, like right now there's Christmas, my husband's like, "If you put Hallmark on one more time," I said, "It makes me feel good." I don't watch a lot of TV, but when I do, I like to watch something that isn't like somebody killing somebody, or, Dateline, where they're trying to solve a mystery of 10 years ago. I don't care about any of that right now. So I'm looking for heartwarming things, and I'll see, oh, it's Christmas in Rome. And I know I've watched this Rome one on Hallmark probably 3 times, but I love Rome so much, and watching, just seeing, like, all the wonderful things in Europe, and I've just have fallen in love with Italy, and part of it's probably my Italian heritage, but I would think it's a little bit more than that. I actually feel at home there. It's a little bit strange, but more there than here. But I do
Well, and how hard that you can't go.
I know, I'm sad. This time last year we were preparing. I remember December. Um, I usually, for many, many years, December is the month of events. And so I would start the day a little bit later than usual because I usually was out the night before till like 10 o'clock, usually. So maybe 9:30, 10, depending. And I'd go from one event, an attorney has a big party, the building industry of Philadelphia, the Urban Land Institute, the Union League of Philadelphia. Like I'd go from one to the next, to the next, to the next. And I'd say for about 20 days, or 20 nights, I would be at probably about 20 so events. And I said, oh gosh, what am I going to do this December? I still have a little anxiety about it because it's just been the norm. Like that's actually like the favorite time of year because I get to reconnect with so many people that maybe I haven't seen in 6 months or maybe since last December. And, you catch up and then you find out, oh, this one's doing this or this one's doing that. And I do a great deal of networking that way. And so it would set up a lot of first quarter. And so here we are on Be the Solution. So you're looking for solutions to connect with people, and thank God for the internet and the ability to do things like this. And you have a wonderful podcast.
Thank you. Yeah. I started it in the pandemic and never expected that we'd be able to do it remotely. That never crossed our mind. We thought, I'd be going into the studio and the guests were remote. We could figure that they would figure that out. But yeah, so Flip Your Script podcast, we started in May. The whole purpose of it is to share inspiring stories and to share these people people's stories are fascinating to me. They always have been. I've been one of these people my entire life where I'll meet someone for the first time and within, I ask a lot of questions. I love people's stories and I feel really honored when people share them with me. And I love to look for the themes. People who have overcome generally have this kind of mindset. People, what is that? What is that? How can we share that with other people? So it really, Flip Your Script is all about different types of guests. Some have had overcome terrible tragedies. Some are famous, have been sports or whatever it may be, but they have a connection that they can share with other people and they want to share it. And so it takes me back to kind of my journalism background. And because I'm not working for a news station, I can ask whatever I want. And that's and it's super fun.
You're the boss.
Great. I love the podcast. I love people's stories, and I'm just so honored that people share them.
That's awesome. So what do you see for the PR industry this year and moving forward? How has it changed?
One of the really significant changes, and I'm interested to see what happens because I have read in the industry two different mindsets about it, but it's really that more people are watching and value their local news and are consuming that content on social media. So whether it might not be I'm sitting down to watch the 6 o'clock news, but in some cases that's true, but they might be getting it later and stream it, or they might be following their favorite anchor, reporter, news writer on social media. So there's been studies that 41% is the increase in local news coverage. People are at home, they're able to watch it. And that has been a really significant trend. Will that change? I don't know. I don't think so. Will it decrease some? Sure, because people are eventually going to get traveling and get busy again and have parties every night. But I think people are reconnecting with their community and they're reconnecting with what people are talking about in their community, and there's value in that. So that's one trend. Social media, the value of having, a personal brand on social media. The trend continues year after year, how young buyers, especially as millennials and Gen X or Gen Z are coming in with buying power, and they want to know who they're doing business with. They care. And, I talk about it regularly, but, 20 years ago, if you were sitting on a Delta flight and you were getting bad service or something, someone walked in with an ostrich and said it was their service animal and the ostrich was like having feathers everywhere, you would just sit there and be frustrated and probably like complain to the person next to you. Now, if that happens, people get on their phones and they look for the CEO of Delta to make a public complaint, or they start texting, tweeting at news stations, and people have access now in a different way. And more brands are understanding that and really adding social media people to their comms department at a pretty high rate. So that's an interesting trend. But the credibility, the authority of legitimate news, it's back. And that fake news conversation that people are having, and it's become kind of, it hasn't become kind of political, it's totally political, disinformation and all of those conversations. We haven't had the level of conversation about news in this country for many decades. So to me, that's exciting. And I like that trend is here. But in the broader PR, there's a lot of people really struggling because their events, anyone in my industry tied to events, I don't know, the big shows, the big conferences that they would cover, people that, are involved in restaurants or hospitality, that isn't coming back quickly. So I think that's something that might not be till 2022 that those people are back at work like they were, if that ever comes back fully.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I mean, we participated and supported a lot of different, like, for example, charity events. And I remember maybe 20 years ago or so, there was probably 500% less of those than there are today. And so everywhere you would turn, there's another charity event to go to and a black tie gala. And, do you see that coming back as strong as it was?
I don't. I do think people want connection, and I do think people want community, but I think some of these charities have realized that they can make money without that big expense. And they can do some really nice virtual events, and in some ways they can get a bigger audience because they're not then tied to one community or one place. They can really share the story of their charities, share the story of their nonprofit with people all over the country, all over the world. And they can make giving easier. You can just be watching a gala or something, get your phone out, text to give money, and it's easy. And it isn't a whole event where getting the hair done and the tux, all the things and the whole night of it, right? All the things.
Thousands of dollars.
Thousands of dollars.
Thousands of dollars for the person, for, you to get ready, right? You got to put the gown, they have to have the tux. Even if you have the tux, it has to be pressed. You have the hair, the nails, the time, the effort. I've looked at it and said, oh my gosh, how much more time do we get back? I know it's a weird thing, but from not having to get dressed for these things, not having to sit in hair salon. Now, don't get me wrong. I do like to get my hair done, but I don't like to sit there and have to get my hair done, if that makes sense, right? The nails, the hair, the makeup, all of these things. That's actually money that can just go directly to a charity, because the cost to just prep your own being to go is very expensive. And, I think people are really thinking about how they live their lives and what they spend their time doing. And, a lot of stuff was, I think, fluff.
Extra things that we thought we had to do, but turns out we don't have to do them. And our lives go on. And many charities are having incredible years.
Yeah.
People have more money, they have more time, they can do a little bit more investigating. And we have some clients in the dating industry. And what they found, in April, May, is that people were saying, okay, I'm here by myself. I don't want to be by myself if this ever happens again. How can I, instead of being a casual dater, how can I step it up and find a life partner? Where that person probably wasn't thinking that before because they could go out with their friends and have a good time. So a lot of people, I think, are really thinking about their time and who they spend time with. And there are also people who are in their house going, what am I doing trapped with this terrible human? There's that side too. So it's a lot of people questioning a lot of things.
It is, especially in the real estate sector. We've seen a lot of families wanting to move back to where their family is, their parents are, whether it's the one side or the other. And part of that is that a couple things. One, they are now in their bubble, so they can see the grandparents all the time instead of saying, "Oh, I can't see, my mom and pop because they're an hour away and they're not in our bubble, so we can't go." But if they're 10 minutes away and they could see them every day, then they are in their little bubble. Also, we see that they want to be next to a family for support, because a lot of people that had the babysitters, the nannies, all of this, no more. And then you have the homeschool. So they're like, I want to be close to my mom and dad, or his mom and dad, or her mom and dad, so that we can see them, so that they can help support our family unit. And they just, you can't put that on paper, right? It's not like, oh, this is a real estate trend. It's, yes, people want a bigger yard? They do. A quarter of them want a bigger yard. Most people didn't have a home office. So most people want a home office. Sometimes now they want 2 home offices, dedicated office space. So these are things, yes, those things we could set and quantify and say, okay, they want that. Or they're in a 1-bedroom and they want to, everybody wants more space is definitely a theme. So it's very, very interesting to see it. And it's really hard to say. People will say, well, really, what's going on? I say, well, here's what I could tell you today. And here's what I've seen. But when you're in the middle of the forest, it's really hard to see the 30-foot view, because we are real estate and how people live and their lot and all of the trends are happening as we speak. So it's a little difficult to see further than what's happening right now, but we are seeing a lot of that.
I've been amazed at all of the transition in either people within the company who have moved, and people who have said, you know what, I'm in the city. I don't need to be in the city. I can be an hour away, because why would I want to be right in the city? And in my own neighborhood, there's been so many people who have been here for, they raise their kids here and their kids are in college, and they said, what do we need all this space for? And in come, people who are looking for the space with little kids. So there's been so much change in real estate. It's been fascinating.
It is fascinating. So you've pivoted a lot this year, your company. What does that look like?
Well, the first really big pivot was going all remote. I would have never thought that we could go all remote. And I'm blown away that we were able to onboard a lot of people remotely, people who have only ever been to the office to pick up a computer and get a card so they can come in the office for supplies and that kind of thing. So that's a huge change. The way that I think about space, and we've always been flexible hours, but this has really brought new meaning on that. So that pivot that was our first big surprising pivot that I think will change the way I think about working, flexibility, technology forever.
So do you still have your office space?
We do have the office space. It's a difficult check to write every month. However, someday we will get back there. So yes, we have our office space.
Excuse me. Are you going to keep it?
Yes. About a year and a half ago, we expanded. So we have about 10,000 square feet of space. And it's a fun space. There's a spin wheel in there. We have it on our Media Minefield website. We've got pictures of the office unicorns, and it's a lot of colors, and it's a fun, bright space. And I know people are desperate to go back there. However, when we left, we had just finished this remodel. We knocked down a wall, got extra space to, help with some of the growth. And we had 7 or 8 empty cubes. Well, we're going to go back whenever we go back, and we're full, and we're probably we have some space that we're going to have to get some more cubes in there. So, but I think about space very different now, because does everyone want to come back full time? Maybe not. Do we need everyone to come back full time? Probably not. So then if we can add more people to the team and we don't have to knock down more walls, that was a really valuable lesson. So when the check goes to pay for the space, I think, you know what, but long term, over the life of this company and my career, the way that my mind has shifted is ultimately going to save a lot of money and will allow people more flexibility, which, especially working parents, is so valuable.
Yeah, I can't even imagine what they're going through. I talk to a lot of people, and very, very hard, very difficult times for them. So having a company like yours that's very flexible in allowing them to work when they can work, and work when people maybe are sleeping.
Right. And that's the thing about a news cycle. So the people in your market that are, planning the morning news shows, they're coming to work at 1 or 2 in the morning. So sometimes I've heard that, and I, back when it was just me doing the work of the company by myself, you set your alarm at some crazy hour so that you can call the newsroom in the middle of the night when the person that you need to talk with is there, and they might be alone, and it's quiet, and you can get some time to try and get your client some airtime. So it is because we're tied to two industries, social media, which never sleeps, and the news industry, which never sleeps. There is a greater opportunity for some flexibility, which people love. And family is so important to me, and news is one of those industries that a lot of people, once they have children, go, boy, this is hard. I don't know that I want to miss birthdays and holidays. And I remember being 6 weeks pregnant with my second son, and a tornado happening, and I was chasing this tornado and not sleeping, and I hadn't told anyone I was pregnant yet. We just found out, and I told the photographer, you have to pull over right now and get me some water. But the tornado, I'm like, listen, I'm pregnant. It's not an environment for people with kids. It's hard. I guess it can, a lot of people make it work. It all depends on how you want your life to look. So for a lot of people, it gets really hard being in that industry, and the demands and the hours with having children. So I love that we can take those people, 5, 10 years experience, 15 years experience, and say, hey, you can still be involved with news. We value your experience, we value your skills, and we value your family. So how can we make that work? So I love that about what I get to do.
So in regards to that, you started the company just 10 years ago. You're still a baby company. And I don't mean that disrespectful. I mean, meaning but you've grown this company to 35 people. And how did you do it?
One at a time, Maria, one at a time.
Because that's a lot.
It's a lot. And the sabbatical gave me a little perspective on that, because I don't sit around and say, look at what we've built. I was very fortunate. The first person, it's funny. It was a year. I had been, had the company for a year, and I spent that first year figuring out, how do I do this? Like, what's my process? How do I get someone like you, a realtor, who is really good at what they do, and has all sorts of industry knowledge and market knowledge, and how do I get them news interviews? Not just how do I get the press, but how do I teach them how to talk about what they're doing to a broader audience, and how do they drop in the name of their company, and how do they leverage it, and how do you do that this month and next month, and with people in law and real estate and healthcare. So I developed this kind of process, which is now trademarked. We call it the Newsability, and that worked, and it kept working. And we've still to this day have 100% success rate. Every client we've ever worked with gets press, which is like a crazy, amazing stat that I never went out to get. but it works when you find something that works and people respond to it. So we grew because things started really to work, and we were showing that there was a different way that you can actually guarantee results. I mean, like in your industry, you can't tell someone you're going to go find them a house, get them a house, and then not show up to the closing. Like, you got to see that whole thing through. You have to make sure that that whole deal is done. And so in my industry, it's always frustrating when people say, well, I might get press, and there's no actual delivery of it. So that is something that I wanted to change. But after the first year, I was doing some speaking, and a woman heard me, and we went out for coffee, and she had a similar background as mine. And she sent me an email the night after I met her and said, I need to work for you. I was like, oh my gosh, there it is. Employees, all my problems are solved. And she was employee one, she's still with the company, and things kept rolling. And I realized that what I'm really good at isn't necessarily the in the weeds work. It's the seeing the next thing. And then we've added, I was walking through an airport several years ago and read a stat about social media and how the personal brand of the CEO is really critical to the value of the company. And that was like a light bulb went off. Okay, most CEOs and most leaders don't have time for social media. They are doing their own thing, and it takes a lot of work to have a personal brand. So how can we offer a product on that side? So we came up with a process, trademarked it. It's positive online presence, or POP, because we're in the Midwest and we call it POP here. And so that became our next thing. And now we have a creative department and paid search, paid ads. So it's these things keep growing and really, to answer, that was a really long answer, but the short answer to your question is, how have we grown? It's because we've listened to what our customers want, and we've been able to offer excellence to them in what they need.
You guys are doing an amazing job. I love working with your company. It's been a great experience and a new experience for me, because I've never done anything like this before. And in fact, the podcast Be the Solution started April 1st because of COVID-19. And we will continue on and continue to build it with the help of many, many people, Sarah included. She's been great to work with. So we appreciate that. I'm curious, so why are you different than all the other people out there outside of these POP and the positive print?
Sure. So we're different because our mindset is different. I've never seen another PR agency of our size built with journalists, having journalists doing the work. They're the best storytellers. They understand how to get a message out there, and they also understand what it takes to deliver something to an audience and how to do that in a few words. So I think that's the first thing. The other thing is, I'm built different. I'm a trained journalist, and I think really differently. I don't have my MBA in entrepreneurship, and I'm really passionate about doing something different. And we're going to keep evolving. I built this thing, started it in a recession. We're going to weather this, knocking on wood, God willing. And we're going to keep growing, because I do think that there's also a statement to be made that the more people, and I'm really passionate about helping the community, and some of the work I'm involved with women entrepreneurs, and the bigger we get, the more people we help, clients, the more employees and families we can change, and the more we can give back. So we're different because our mindset is different. We're built different. And I am an unlikely entrepreneur, but the more entrepreneurs I meet, I realize I'm pretty common in mindset. My industry is just different than theirs.
Yes. Well, they all have a common theme. It's that vision, it's the hunger, it's the getting up every day and saying, okay, what are we going to do today to move things forward, and how can we help continue to build our community and making those around us better? Because I thought for years and that everybody was there to help me, but it's exactly the opposite, right? As leaders, we're there to help our people, help them grow, and then help those clients, grow from there. I think that
Absolutely.
building that community is probably the most important thing with with
Absolutely. And success isn't about me. I can't do this by myself. I'm well aware of that. And it's really important that the team feels cared for and loved and empowered and developed, because the future leaders of my company are probably in the company. And whether or not they can lead, that's on me to help them get there. So
yeah.
it's and that is has been such a joy to see people who I meet, and and you can do this too probably when you meet people. You have so much potential. You have no idea how much potential you have, but you have so much potential. Do you want to do the work to unlock that? Let me help you, but I can't want it more than you want it. And you can tell within, 10, 15 minutes, like, do you have the right kind of passion? Do you have the right kind of mindset? Now, there's a lot of skills needed too, which is why I don't do the hiring, because I get excited about the potential. And you can't hire always just for passion and potential, because, I made some bad hires that way, because people that need skills and desire and drive and all these other things. But I get really excited about showing people a different way to live, and to see their value in different ways, and to take someone who's a news producer working overnight and to say, you know what, you could be, if you want, if leadership is something you're interested in, you could be leading a team of people, and you could be you could have clients that are involved in national conversations. That's exciting.
It's so funny, Kristi. I'm the same exact way. I would meet with people and I say, "Oh my God, it's so great. You have so much potential." And then it took me more than a decade to realize that, yes, I wanted it more for all of them than they wanted them for themselves. So it was never a good match. So I kind of fired myself from hiring.
Yes, I fired myself, and other people in the company helped me fire myself from hiring. But I really am excited about the potential of people, and I'm a great vision I have, leadership I have, but management, that is not my forte. And thank goodness we have really talented managers, because our people have metrics and they have development plans, and all we have an executive director of people and development, and that's all she does.
Hmm.
And I've said it before that, you know if I had if I was a farmer, and again, I'm in the Midwest, so if I was a farmer and my crops needed good machinery, I would have the best machinery around, and I would have someone keeping the oil and gas. And I've never actually worked on a farm, so I'm not totally sure what that machinery needs, but I know it needs work. Someone has to be keeping track of that machinery. And so why don't we do that with people? We should be making sure that the people have everything that they need. We should be making sure that they have the fuel and that they have all of the tools that they need to be the most successful that they can be, whatever that looks like for that person. And then as a team, if I'm taking that kind of care of the team, then they can take really good care of the clients, and they can be, and that's how the business succeeds.
Yeah, it's great. I love it. I love your energy. And that red looks great on you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's, I have jeans and slippers on, but it looks good on the top, doesn't it?
It looks good. I love it. I love it. Kristi, it was great being with you today. Thank you for being the solution. Amazing, amazing job, and wonderful to hear about all the plans for the company. And I'm sure you're going to do it because there's no other choice, right? We choose.
Right on. Yes. Thank you for having me. Thank you for trusting us with your message. Thank you for being one of our clients. And I look forward to seeing where you go and all the things that you can do, and hearing about your trips eventually in the
Yeah.
future.
Thank you. One day at a time.
That's right. One day at a time.
Make it a great one. See you soon.